House Speaker Mike Johnson stood before reporters in the Rayburn Room, flanked by key Republican leaders including Majority Leader Steve Scalise, Whip Tom Emmer, and Conference Chair Elise Stefanik. The unified group sent a clear message: Democrats are to blame for the impending government shutdown. Johnson declared that House Republicans had already done their job by passing several appropriations bills designed to keep the government open responsibly. He criticized Senate Democrats and the White House for ignoring the people's priorities and delaying negotiations for political leverage. Johnson emphasized that Republicans are standing firm on fiscal restraint and government accountability, not partisan politics. "We are fighting for families, small businesses, and future generations," he said, accusing Democrats of reckless overspending that has worsened inflation and ballooned the national debt. The Speaker also highlighted how the GOP's proposed spending bills would secure the border, support law enforcement, and protect military funding, priorities he says Democrats have failed to prioritize. Republican leaders closed the section of the briefing by pledging to keep working day and night to prevent a shutdown, but only through what Johnson called responsible governance, not the spending chaos promoted by the Democratic-led Senate. During the press conference, Speaker Mike Johnson issued a direct and pointed warning to President Joe Biden and his administration. Johnson accused the White House of sitting idly by while the country moves closer to a government shutdown. He urged the president to step up, show leadership, and engage in real negotiations instead of passing blame. Johnson made it clear that House Republicans will not approve what he called blank checks or reckless, last-minute spending deals that contribute to America's growing debt crisis. The Speaker criticized Biden's approach to fiscal management, claiming that under his administration, inflation has soared, household budgets have been stretched thin, and federal spending has reached unsustainable levels. Johnson warned that the American people are tired of Washington's dysfunction and that it's time for common-sense leadership. He also emphasized that the GOP's goal is not to shut down the government, but to force accountability and restore fiscal sanity. "We want a government that works, but works within its means," Johnson stated. He challenged the president to meet Republicans halfway on spending cuts and policy reforms, arguing that true leadership means compromise, not political posturing. At the heart of the press conference, Speaker Mike Johnson emphasized that the Republican Party's primary mission is to restore fiscal responsibility and bring discipline back to Washington's spending habits. He highlighted the alarming growth of the national debt, which has now surpassed $35 trillion, calling it a ticking time bomb for America's economic future. Johnson warned that the unchecked borrowing and spending under Democratic leadership threaten not only the stability of the U.S. economy but also the financial well-being of ordinary families. Republican leaders outlined their plan to rein in government expenditures through targeted budget reforms and responsible funding measures. They argued that their proposed spending bills focus on strengthening border security, rebuilding the military, and supporting American industries while eliminating wasteful programs and bureaucratic excess. Johnson stated, "We are not the party of shutdowns, we are the party of solutions." He added that fiscal accountability is not about partisan politics but about protecting the next generation from financial collapse. GOP lawmakers insisted that Democrats' addiction to spending has fueled inflation, driven up housing costs, and made groceries unaffordable for millions of Americans. Republicans vowed to continue pressing for a leaner, more accountable federal government. Democratic leaders quickly fired back at Speaker Mike Johnson and his GOP colleagues, accusing them of creating chaos and using the threat of a government shutdown as a political weapon. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer dismissed the Republican claims as a distraction from their inability to govern. He argued that the House GOP is wasting valuable time pushing unrealistic spending cuts instead of collaborating to protect vital public services. Democrats contended that the Republican budget proposals would impose severe reductions on programs millions of Americans depend on, including healthcare, education, housing assistance, and veterans' benefits. "This is not fiscal responsibility," said House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. "This is fiscal recklessness dressed up as reform." He accused Republicans of catering to the far-right faction of their party rather than focusing on bipartisan solutions. White House officials also weighed in, saying the administration has repeatedly offered to negotiate in good faith, but Republicans are holding the economy hostage. Democrats warned that the GOP's refusal to compromise risks damaging the nation's credit rating and harming everyday Americans. In their view, the solution is clear: pass a clean funding bill to keep the government running and prevent unnecessary hardship. As the standoff between Republicans and Democrats continues, the potential consequences of a government shutdown are growing increasingly serious. Without a funding agreement, key federal operations could soon come to a grinding halt. Hundreds of thousands of government employees, from park rangers to IRS workers, may face unpaid furloughs. Military personnel could see their pay delayed, and critical services such as food assistance programs, federal housing support, and loan processing might be disrupted. Economists warn that even a short-term shutdown could cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars, shaking consumer confidence and slowing economic growth. Previous shutdowns have shown how quickly the effects ripple through society, from air travel delays due to reduced staffing, to small businesses losing access to federal loans. Beyond the economic damage, analysts caution that repeated shutdown threats erode global trust in America's political stability. Investors, allies, and international markets watch these moments closely, viewing them as indicators of dysfunction in Washington. Speaker Mike Johnson acknowledged the potential fallout but placed responsibility squarely on the Democrats, saying Republicans won't be bullied into reckless spending. Meanwhile, citizens nationwide brace for uncertainty as the deadline to avert a shutdown draws dangerously close. As the deadline for government funding approaches, tension inside the U.S. Capitol continues to rise. Speaker Mike Johnson made it clear that House Republicans plan to move forward with a short-term funding bill, known as a continuing resolution, aimed at buying time to negotiate a longer-term deal. However, divisions remain deep, not only between Republicans and Democrats but also within the GOP itself, where some hardline conservatives are demanding deeper spending cuts and stricter border security measures. Johnson, despite these internal pressures, expressed confidence that the House can stand united in purpose to protect American taxpayers. He reiterated his stance that Republicans are prepared to negotiate but will not surrender to Washington's broken status quo. Democrats, on the other hand, insist that any agreement must include full funding for essential services and reject what they call extreme right-wing policy riders. With only days remaining before a shutdown, both parties are under immense pressure to act. Lawmakers are expected to work through the weekend, as behind-the-scenes talks intensify. Political analysts say the coming days will test Johnson's leadership and the GOP's ability to govern effectively as the nation watches to see if Congress can prevent another fiscal crisis.